Today we're going over the most brutal stories of revenge in human history. Number 1, Olga and the Drevlians. We're starting this list with quite possibly one of the greatest ride-or-die stories in human history, when Olga of Kiev led one of the most terrifying and calculated tours of revenge following the brutal execution of her husband. It's the year 945, and Prince Igor is ruling over Kievan Rus, an empire that once stretched over modern-day Ukraine, Bulgaria, and a bit of Russia. To his west lived the Drevlians, a tribe who actually kind of hated the Kievan Rus, but occasionally fought alongside them against the Byzantine Empire. When Igor's father Oleg dies in 912, the Drevlians see it as an opportunity to finally stop paying their tribute, aka their forced protection money, to Kiev. Igor patiently waits for his money for 33 years until finally deciding 34 years would be just too long, and personally travels to the Drevlian capital city of Korostan to collect his money himself. He rides into the city with a large army and demands tribute, which the Drevlians begrudgingly pay. That should have been the end of it. But on his ride home, Igor decides the tribute was too small, so he turns back with a few men to demand more. When he arrives shouting his demands, the Drevlians immediately kill his men. Igor is saved for an extra horrific execution. The Drevlians bend 2 birch trees toward each other and tie one of Igor's legs to each. Once fastened, they cut the supports, and the trees snap back, ripping Igor in 2. The Drevlians' ruler, Prince Mal, feels pretty good about himself and sets his sights on the larger empire by marrying Igor's widow, Olga. This is where things go downhill for the Drevlians because Olga was the wrong person to mess with. Prince Mal sends 20 of his best ambassadors to Kiev to inform Olga of her husband's death and propose she marry him to combine their territories. Surprisingly, she seems to take this news well and tells the messengers that they should go back to their boat to rest for now, and that tomorrow her men would bring them into the city to get her. The next morning, Olga's men walk down to the shore to get the ambassadors, but instead of just leading them into the city, they pick up their entire boat with all 20 men still in it. The ambassadors are blown away by this hospitality. What service! They're being treated like royalty! Until the ride suddenly got really bumpy. See, all through the night, Olga had her men digging a huge trench, and when her men arrived with the Drevlian ambassadors, she ordered them to dump the boat and all the men on board into this huge hole. She then orders them to bury these messengers alive. The Drevlians can do nothing as dirt is piled onto them. But Olga was just getting started. She sends her own messengers to Korostan, asking Prince Mal to send his most distinguished men to Kiev to escort his soon-to-be bride. Not knowing what happened to the first group, the Drevlians comply and send a party of lords and powerful men as escorts. When they arrive, Olga tells them to relax in a bathhouse her men had prepared while she gets ready. Once they're inside, her men lock the doors and set the bathhouse and everyone in it on fire. Olga sends more messengers to Korostan, asking Prince Mal to prepare for her arrival. She has one request, a feast to mourn her late husband before the marriage. The Drevlians, again not really knowing what's going on in Kiev, prepare a grand feast for Olga. She arrives, the party begins, and she encourages the Drevlians to drink and mourn with her. They do, and by the end of the night, the Drevlians are all properly hammered. Olga then orders her men to begin killing the now drunk and defenseless Drevlians. Surprise! Her men were sandbagging their drinks the whole night and were stone-cold sober. Historians say Olga was seen cheering her men on as they went around slaughtering thousands of Drevlians, including Prince Mal himself. Olga returns to Kiev to raise an army to finish the job. The Drevlians finally catch the hint when she returns to Korostan with a massive army and begins a siege. For over a year, the citizens suffer with little food or supplies until Olga finally sends a message, "Pay tribute, and this can all be over." Having already been fooled 3 times, the Drevlians agree to pay but fear she'll kill them anyway. She responds that she got a little crazy after Igor, but it's fine now. Just send 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each house, and she'll leave. Relieved that the nightmare is ending, the Drevlians gather the birds. That night, Olga has her men tie a small bundle of sulfur to each bird's leg, set the cloth on fire, and release the birds into the night. Olga and her men watch 1,000 embers fly off into the distance as the birds return to their nests on the buildings of Korostan. Within hours, the entire city is a fiery hellscape. Olga watches it burn to the ground and claims all Drevlian territory for herself. So yeah, they really should have just paid the tribute. Number 2, Caesar and the pirates. This next story is one where I actually feel a little sorry for the bad guys. It's the year 75 BCE, and a 25-year-old Roman nobleman named Julius Caesar was sailing the Aegean Sea heading to Rhodes. Along the way, his ship is boarded by Sicilian pirates and Julius is taken captive. Now, becoming a hostage is usually a terrifying situation for most people, but in this case, I think the pirates knew right from the start they might have made a huge mistake. The pirates take a look at Caesar with his fancy clothes and entourage and realize he's probably somebody important, so they set a ransom for 20 talents worth around $2 million today, give or take $1 million. When Caesar hears this number, he's offended and demands that they up the ransom to 50 talents. He sends his entourage to gather the money to buy his freedom, and he would remain as the pirates' hostage until they came back with the money. The pirates then sail off with Caesar and just a few of his men to their island hideout. Now, aboard the pirate ship, Caesar simply refuses to be a prisoner. In fact, the entire time he's held hostage, he acts as if they were all on his ship and these pirates are his men. He freely walks around the ship, eats with the pirates, joins in on their games, and even exercises with them. He shushes them to be quiet when they're being noisy, and every day he forces them to listen to the speeches and poems he's working on. And that is why the Senate's power is but an illusion, maintained merely by tradition and weak men. Rome needs a leader who can see beyond petty politics and guide her to true greatness, perhaps even by force if necessary. You guys are all fucking idiots, aren't you? The pirates were confused as they never had a prisoner behave in such a strange way, but they put up with Caesar because he was kind of charismatic, and he was also kind of their ticket to a huge payday. It's also worth mentioning that throughout his time as a hostage, Caesar would joke that one day he would crucify them all for this. Once you guys let me go, I'm going to find you guys and crucify every single one of you. I'm totally serious. You're all going to be so sorry. 38 days later, Caesar's men return with the 50 talents and Caesar is set free. The pirates sail back to their island with their jackpot to celebrate. Caesar does no such relaxing. He immediately raises a small army and sails right back to their island. He takes back his ransom and captures every pirate who held him captive. Caesar crucifies all of them, just as promised. To his credit, he'd grown fond of these pirates, so he slit their throats first to spare them a slow death. What a nice guy. We go from pirates who were too dumb to know what was coming, to a story of extreme loyalty when 47 samurai patiently waited for 2 years to avenge the death of their fallen master. This story begins in 1701 with 2 young daimyo named Kame and Asano, and a man named Kira, a member of the shogun's court tasked with instructing the 2 young lords in proper etiquette. Now Kira, he was a giant douchebag, but because he was close to the shogun, he basically could get away with anything. The story goes that when Kama and Asano traveled to Edo, the 2 young lords brought gifts, aka bribes, that Kira felt were not big enough, so Kira pretty much spends every day calling them names, and overall being a giant asshole. Both young lords were not used to being treated so poorly, but Asano does his best to maintain his composure. Kame, on the other hand, can't take it and decides to assassinate Kira himself. Kame's counselors caught wind of the plan and secretly paid Kira a huge bribe to stop, unknowingly saving his life. Kira began treating Kame better. Asano never got the memo, so Kira, now with only one target, ramped up his insults. One day in Edo Castle, Kira calls Asano a country hick with no manners. Asano finally snaps, pulls out a knife, and slashes at Kira, only managing to cut his face before castle guards stop him. Drawing a weapon inside Edo Castle was a serious crime. Asano is arrested, his land seized, and he's ordered to commit seppuku, the samurai's ritual disembowelment. His family loses everything, and his now masterless samurai are left to become ronin. Kira receives no punishment and gets off nearly scot-free with just a scar on his face. Now, Kira was a prick, but he was no idiot. He knew that Asano had very loyal samurai who would probably try to defend the honor of their fallen lord, so he hires extra security and sends out spies and ninjas to track every move of the now masterless samurai. Over the next year, Asano's men seemed to move on, taking up ordinary jobs as carpenters, blacksmiths, and merchants. Their leader, Oishi, takes the fall especially hard, drinking heavily, visiting brothels, even divorcing his wife and sending his family away. Another year passes, and Kira, relieved that no one seems interested in revenge, reduces his guards and assumes he's safe. He's dead wrong. On the night of January 31st, 1703, 47 of Asano's former samurai quietly surround his home in Edo. They hadn't moved on at all. For 2 years, they'd secretly plotted their revenge, and every detail, including Oishi's drunken act, was part of an elaborate plan to lower Kira's guard. The group stayed in contact through coded messages, and the entire night was meticulously planned. Beforehand, they visit Kira's neighbors to explain they're not burglars, just samurai defending their fallen lord's honor, and that no one else is in danger. Unsurprisingly, the neighbors who hated Kira too do nothing to stop them. The Ronin take out the perimeter guards, and Oishi sends archers to climb onto Kira's roof as lookouts. With everything in place, the assault begins. Oishi beats a drum to signal his men to attack, and a group under his command storms the front of the house, while another group led by his 16-year-old son storms the rear. Oishi's son breaks through first, but is quickly joined by Oishi's group. The house erupts into a bloody battle, with the Ronin cutting down Kira's guards left and right. Realizing they're outmatched, Kira's men try to send for help, but anyone who leaves is shot down by the rooftop archers. The Ronin subdue 38 men, but Kira is nowhere to be found, until they find his bed still warm. They keep searching and discover a secret passage behind a scroll, leading to a small storehouse where a man cowers with a dagger and attacks them. They capture him and call for Oishi, who by lantern light finds the scar Asano left on Kira's face 2 years earlier, confirming his identity. Oishi kneels and respectfully explains they are simply fulfilling their duty to their master, offering Kira an honorable death by seppuku, handing him the same dagger Asano once used. Kira sits trembling, doing nothing no matter how Oishi urges him. Eventually, Oishi grabs the dagger and beheads him himself. As the sun rises, the Ronin begin the 6-mile journey to their master's tomb at Sengakuji Temple, carrying Kira's head. Word spreads through the city, and townsfolk cheer the samurai along the way, offering gifts and food. The exhausted Ronin arrive at the temple and present Kira's head and Asano's dagger at their master's grave, fulfilling their duty. They then turn themselves in, knowing their crimes will lead to their own executions. The shogun faces a dilemma. These were criminals who murdered one of his men, but they were also following the code of Bushido to defend their master's honor. He decides they must be punished, but with dignity, allowing them to commit seppuku, a more honorable death. The Ronin are buried in graves surrounding their master, which can still be visited today. Number 4, Chinggis Khan and the Khwarezmid Empire. This last story is history's greatest example of feast around and find out, and like most things involving Chinggis Khan, the death toll is staggering. Let's get into it. In 1218, Chinggis Khan sends a caravan of 450 merchants and traders to the Khwarezmian city of Otrar, hoping to expand his trade network to the west. The merchants arrive and are immediately executed by the governor of the city, a man named Inalchuk, who then steals all of the goods brought by the merchants and sells them to members of high society in the city of Bukhara. One camel driver from the caravan manages to escape, and he returns to Mongolia to tell Chinggis what had happened. Pissed off but trying to keep his cool, Chinggis sends another small group of diplomats, 1 Muslim and 2 Mongolians, to the Shah Muhammad himself, the ruler of the Khwarezmian Empire, to negotiate peace. All the Shah has to do is let them take Inalchuq back to Mongolia for punishment, and everything would be all good. But instead of giving up Inalchuq, the Shah reverses the envoy and kills the Muslim diplomat, then shaves the beards of the Mongolians, the ultimate form of disrespect in their culture, before sending them back to Chinggis. Okay, let's see. Fucking around. Check. Now it's time to find out. Chinggis is now furious, and he quickly raises an army of 200,000 men to crush Khwarezmia. They're not messing around, and the Mongolians attack multiple cities at once. Two of Chinggis' sons, Chagatai and Ogadai, lead a siege on Otrar to capture Inalchuq, while Chinggis personally goes to Bukhara to punish those who had taken his goods. The Mongols use new siege weapons they collected in China, and soon the walls of Bukhara are destroyed, and Chinggis rides into the heart of the city. Chinggis loudly proclaims to the citizens that he was sent by God as punishment for their sins. He then orders his men to slaughter everyone in the city, only sparing artisans and craftsmen, which he took as slaves, and young able-bodied men, which he took as human shields for further battles. Meanwhile, his sons were busy at work trying to crack Otrar. After 5 months of suffering, a general within the city realizes it's hopeless and decides to defect with a few thousand of his men and join the Mongols. He opens the city gates and rushes to join his new Mongolian brothers. But it turns out the Mongols don't really like traitors, no matter which side they're on, and they kill the general and his men themselves. With the gates wide open, they ride into Otrar and capture Inalchuq, who fights to the end, even throwing bricks and roof tiles as a desperate last attempt when he runs out of weapons. As punishment for his greed, Chinggis has his men pour molten silver into Inalchuq's eyes and ears. Chinggis's forces go on to destroy every city in the Khwarezmian Empire. Shah Muhammad spends the rest of his life fleeing the Mongols until he dies of pneumonia on a tiny island in the Caspian Sea. By the end of the campaign, the Khwarezmian Empire is gone, and Chinggis has killed an estimated 15 million people, roughly the combined population of New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago.